Hi, I'm Tonnie. I'm currently taking a Digger Challenge class,
Okay.
which is a group-based course that each group working on their own design project to do some improvement for our community.
Okay.
And our group is trying to help with the college application process with the refugee student in the international high school at Langley Park. So I just designed my personal project in the related direction that the English language program for the refugee student in the college.
Okay.
And I assume there will be more refugee students coming in the next couple of years.
Okay.
And so, would you mind doing an introduction about yourself and your work?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So my name is Jennifer, and I'm an admissions counselor here in the Office of Undergraduate Admissions.
Mm-hmm.
I've been here for about 2.5 years, so I'm pretty experienced in the world of admissions. For the past year and a half, I've worked specifically with international students, and I'm slowly transitioning into more of that role. So although we don't do any type of international recruitment, so since I've started, we haven't traveled overseas to do any type of recruitment. But we've held workshops. We've done webinars via like Skype with students overseas. I've met with counselors via Skype overseas just to help answer questions, even though I can't be there physically with them. But just helping students through the application process, giving them information about Maryland. So a lot of folks might have heard Maryland, but maybe just know where we're located or we're really close to DC, but they don't know a lot about who we are and things like that. So a lot of it is sharing that information, helping them through the process, reviewing applications. So I do review a bulk of the international applications for both freshmen and transfer students, and that happens all year round. Yeah, and then any other follow-up questions. Usually if students have questions about like I-20, we would advise them to go to our Office of International Student Scholar Services. But a lot of times it'll be questions about like TOEFL requirements or MEI, our Maryland English Institute, like those type of questions that I get a lot of.
Okay.
Yeah.
So since you work with the admission process, what is the number of applications our UMD can get each academic years?
Yeah, so this past year we received over 32,000 applications.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
So do we have a large application number from the refugee groups, and what is the round number?
So we don't have that many students, not that I know of. I don't know that number, but I do know that our international pool is very small, and so I would imagine that our refugee pool is even smaller, but I don't have that number.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you know any of the refugees apply our school?
No, sometimes I'll come across them during the application process, like when I'm reviewing applications, but that's not something that I like have readily available. But I can see if I can get you that information if you need it. I can share that with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
That's something I would probably have to put in a data request for if you're looking for like statistics and some numbers from our office. I'd have to pull some data there, but that might take a couple of days.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're not very clear between the international student and refugee groups. Okay. No. So what are the countries of origins of the international student? Maybe they include the refugee students.
That specifically with refugees, I don't work with students specifically. I just do more like the general international. I could put you in touch with our assistant director of international. She may have more information in terms specifically with the refugees. But I know that a majority of our students, in terms of international applicants, come from China and India. So those are our top two highest feeder countries. But in terms of specific refugees, I'm not familiar with that.
So have you ever met like international students from the Central American countries?
From Central America? I'm trying to think. I've come across a few, but the ones that I'm thinking about have come from like Africa. Not Central America specifically, but that doesn't mean that we don't have them. I just might not have come across them directly myself. Yeah.
Because the school we work with, their student, like, there are more people from the Central America.
Okay.
They speak Spanish. I
Okay.
think.
Yeah.
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 So.
Oh, interesting.
So, anyway, like from your personal view, do you have any impression about refugees?
Do I have any what?
Impression, like from the social media news?
No. Not necessarily.
I used to don't have any impression about them because just heard the news, but like
Not
since
much.
we are doing this program, and I interviewed one of my friends, and her aunt was from Cambodia. No, actually, their family was from Cambodia, but her aunt is a refugee too before, and so she suffered a really bad time in the 1990s.
Yeah.
And she was very poor, and like the her peers like laughing about her just because of she only had one pair of shoes. Yeah, so I feel really bad about her, and it's my first time like thinking we can do something for them. Yeah. So and the statistic we got from the website, like only 1% of the refugee group around the world they got a higher level education.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's the reason why we want to improve.
Yeah. I think if you have the time to interview our assistant director, she would be able to give you a lot of insight because she was a refugee herself.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I can put you in touch when we're done here, and I can go talk to her to see if she has some time.
Yeah, I think if our group continue to working on the project next semester, probably would be helpful.
Yeah, I'll definitely connect you with her. Yes, she'll be able to give you a lot of information. I'm sure.
Yeah. So from my previous interview with Mr. Joe Harden, he's your friend, right? And he said that the language of the refugee group is good enough when they attend the college, since many high schools already have the mature ESL program. So what's your opinion about that?
About the high schools having a program, or that we have a program?
He said the refugee student coming to the college with good enough English
proficiency. Yeah, I mean the students that I've come across with have pretty proficient English. Whether or not they're coming directly from overseas, or some of them have been refugees who are here in the States and have gone through kind of high school. I haven't come across, again, our pool is already so small that the pool of students that I even come across directly is even smaller. So I can only think of about like two refugees that I've worked with. But again, like Janan, my assistant director, I'm sure has worked with plenty more. But a majority of the students that I've come across with in my experience are proficient in English. But regardless of if I feel like they're proficient or not, we still have policies to follow. So like those students will still have to submit some type of proof of English proficiency. Just because that's how like our policy like works. Yeah.
Cool. So like for the two refugee students you met, are they good enough with the English?
Yes.
Okay.
They tend to be more soft-spoken, the refugees that I've come across, so they usually bring someone else with them and kind of like speak on their behalf. And I try to get them to talk to me a little bit more, but sometimes they're shy or they're just quiet. But the interactions that I have had with them is proficient.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. By the way, I want to know, do we have the basic requirement on the English proficiency for the admission to the UMD? And is that a standard line, or it can be varied? It depends on the different groups. So, like.
So, like our English proficiency requirements,
Mm-hmm.
so that's pretty standard throughout the entire, no matter where you're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
We are making a change. So right now, our TOEFL minimum requirement is 100, and our IELTS is a 7.
Mm-hmm.
And we have some waive options as well.
Yeah.
In terms of the TOEFL, we are reducing it to 95. That's effective immediately. So that's something that we've noticed. Other schools, like our score is really high, 100 compared to other schools, and the TOEFL is a very difficult exam. Like, I'm sure most Americans can't even pass the TOEFL, so that's something that we're working on. But it's pretty standard regardless of what countries you're coming from, unless you are coming from um, a native speaking, like an English native speaking country. And so we have a list of those on our website that I'm hoping to also update throughout the summer as well, because some of those countries might be, outdated.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm also transfer here without the TOEFL score.
Yeah. So we have some waive options, like if students who went to high school in the United States without 4 years of English second language are transferring here with at least 55 credits, have completed English 101 or 102, or have received their associate's degree or bachelor's degree or whatnot. Students who have studied through the Cambridge or British curriculum will also consider waiving the TOEFL 4, and then of course if they are native of any of the English-speaking countries. Those are the options that we have in terms of waiving that requirement.
So how can we consider like the refugee, like they probably come to the United States like in the 11th or 12th grade? So is meet the requirement or not? Can we?
In terms of like the TOEFL requirement or admissions requirement?
Admission?
Yeah, so in terms of admissions requirement, their application process is no different than our international students. They still have to submit 4 years of high school, SAT or ACT score, letters of recommendation, essay, extracurricular. They still have to submit all of that. But if they indicate that English is not their native language, then that's when we also have to require TOEFL. If they indicate that English is their native language, then that's not something that we would require.
So what if their score is not enough, so they won't get admitted?
Yeah, so if their application is overall competitive and admissible, but if their score doesn't meet the 95 minimum, say they get like an 84, but they're a really strong student, we would admit them under conditional admission, where they would have to come through our Maryland English Institute.
Yeah.
And that's usually a 1-semester program where they'll have to take English classes, and then they are retested at the end. Yep, and then if they pass the course, then they can start the next semester at Maryland and just take academic classes. But if they don't pass the class, the MEI program, they only have one chance to retake it again. And if they fail it twice, then they have to go through the application process all over again. Yeah.
Okay. So, from your personal view, is there any relationship between the country of origin and the English level? Like I think some of the languages they might share a little bit common with English, so student can perform better on the English. Do you think so?
Yes, I think so. Depending on the country and especially the school curriculum. Like for example, like India has a lot of students. India are English speaking nowadays. Yes, they are multilingual still, but that's a country that is not, even though English isn't the official language there, a lot of the students there are being educated as if English wasn't a second language. Now that's going to be tricky. Like every country is advancing at a different level, so that's going to vary country to country. So yeah, it's definitely dependent on what country the students are coming from and what type of education that they're receiving.
Okay.
Yeah.
So India is a second language country.
In terms of our applicants.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when I design my project, I expect the refugee student might need more language assistance. But after the interview with Joe, I was confused.
Okay.
So I just asking, is there any specific help that refugee students need when they attend the college? I don't know if you know that.
If there's any
Special needed?
for when they come here or while they're going through or before they come here.
When they come to the college.
That I am not sure.
Oh.
Yeah. Because I'm not as acclimated to the rest of the campus, so I'm not 100% sure. But they would still be able to take advantage of all of the academic resources that we have. But in terms of refugee specific, that's not something I'm aware of. Yeah.
So when our team did the interview with some professional people who work with the young refugee organizations, they all mentioned that the mental health services is needed. So do we have the specific mental health services for the refugee student on our campus?
I am not aware of it. If we do, with our Office of Accessibility and Disability Services, they serve all types of students, regardless of their status. But again, specific to refugees, I wouldn't think so, but I'm not 100% sure.
And how about for the international student?
Same, they would still go through like the same office, but whether or not they have the same specific people for them, I'm not 100% sure. In terms of like that professional area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think the refugee student probably be more sensitive in some topics. Yeah, because they used to suffer a really bad time in their back country, like the war or something.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree with you.
And so it looks like that launching a special program is hard and costly. So what can we do with our current resources on the campus to help the potential future refugee groups?
I think a lot of it is educating others because not a lot of people like even know what a refugee is, let alone think about like the resources that we have available, like just bringing it to light, finding a group of students who are passionate about the cause, and just educating others about it, because if it's not happening to you directly, then it's not something that you have to think about, and that's the privilege that a lot of us have, not to have to think about that type of thing. So I think starting with education, because honestly, like, I don't hear much about it, I don't know much about it, like I don't even know what our numbers are, right? So that says a lot about me and how uneducated I am within that area. So being able to learn more about it and then figuring out how can we assist these folks, right? And then also asking them, like, what do they need, not necessarily what we should provide for them, but seeing what these group of folks actually need, and then how we can support their needs.
Yeah. So this year is the year of immigrants. So what are the main activity we did?
What was that?
Do you guys did any activity with this?
No, so not within admissions, we don't. Just because the way that like our year works, like most of the time, well, if we're not reading applications, then we're on the road. Like if we're not on the road, then we're like doing workshops. We're going to conferences. So like most of the time, we're not here on campus. So in terms of us even getting involved with that type of thing, we don't even have interactions with the current students. So we work mainly with students in high schools and counselors. So I know that like Office of International Student and Scholar Services have put on events and things like that to celebrate the Year of Immigrants, and they have of course like have invited admissions and things like that. But it's very difficult for us to, especially because like we're never always in the office. Yeah, it's the way that our job asks of us. So we have to be on the road and recruit students. Yeah.
Very busy.
Yeah.
So do we have any ongoing? No, I think this question is not suitable. Do you know any clubs that or program that with the refugee in our campus? No. So do you know that the refugee or international student can get financial aid or special scholarship for the college tuition?
No, so international students, any student who is not a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident does not qualify for any need-based or merit-based aid. Especially for students who are like on F1 visa. That's the most common visa that we have for international students.
Mm-hmm.
For our refugees, we don't offer them scholarships,
Mm-hmm.
but depending on their residency status, if they're a Maryland resident, it is possible that they'll qualify for in-state tuition.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what we have as an option. But in terms of any type of aid, we don't.
Okay. So, yeah, I think that's it. So, do you have any questions about me?
What got you into like interested in this like topic in refugees?
Because I just joined the group anyway, and they are working. One of our group mates, she's exchange student from the Australia, and
Okay.
she used to do the refugee work, volunteer works.
Mm-hmm.
So she's interested in like doing more on this, and we are just decide to focus on the young refugees, and after we previous interview with other the people working with the refugee groups, and they think there's kind of like main problem is like mental health services and the language program,
Okay.
and the college application is also needed. So many of them like probably their family has not many experience about how to apply to college.
Right. Yeah.
So they probably need more volunteer to help them with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I do like a lot of application processes, like workshops, or even working one-on-one with students who need that extra help.
Mm-hmm.
So even if like you come across any students or know anyone that need that extra, like please let me know. I would love to help them through the process. That's just something that I hold very dear to my heart for families who are like first generation, who are going through the process for the first time, and like that type of thing.
Yeah, and there's a problem like with the college essays, just the application essays. They don't know how to start it.
Mm-hmm.
Like for like we need to write a story about ourselves, but like they can like jump out of the loop of they are just a refugee.
Right.
And also like I'm also a second language speaker, so
Mm-hmm.
sometimes when I do the application essays, I think I don't know how to write the fancy words, but some people just tell me that it's not necessary.
It's not. No. What would be really helpful for students who are struggling through that piece is not worrying about the big fancy words, because that's not what we're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking for your story, and we're looking to hear what you have to contribute, like what makes you unique, what makes you different from the next applicant. Of course, you want to have someone else take a look at your essay when you're done, so that they can, catch any grammar mistakes or easy spelling mistakes and things like that. Because we also, when we're reviewing the essays, we also like to see, okay, how well does this student write? Because you're going to be doing a lot of writing in college, so we need to make sure that, your writing is done well. So we're not expecting you to have a thesaurus and a dictionary and like using all these big words. We just want to know about you and to see how well you write about yourself.
Like clear.
Yeah, right, exactly. Like when you're reading it out loud, that it makes sense and that I'm not like having a hard time trying to understand you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially like for our English as like a second language students. Again, I'm not expecting you to have the perfect sentence or the perfect type of grammar, because I want to hear your voice. If this is how you speak, I want to hear it. However, I also want you to be able to share it with somebody else so they can take a second look just to polish it up, but not to rewrite your entire essay. Yeah, so I hold a lot of essay workshops and stuff like that too, so I could see where that could be a struggle or a challenge for students who have never been through the process, or who don't have anybody to help them through the process. So that's what we're here for. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that's just my personal project, but
Okay.
I'm sure you can just
Yeah, of
always
course. Yeah.
agree.
So I can go see if Janana's available. Would you have time today if she is to interview her?
Um,
Or
um,
would you want to rather schedule something with her?
yeah, yeah. I think I probably need